He's still hanging in there, AO, the Russell brand there. That's two days really. You've got the same story, and is it really that important? I mean, a lot of things going on in the world, AO, aren't there?
Well, it's rather sad because it's reflective of the fact that there's far more important things happening in the UK, in Europe, and in the rest of the world that should be making the headlines. But the Russell brand,
for example.
Well, we've got the Congo, for example, which is not making the headlines.
Okay,
that's
yeah,
a real
true.
problem.
The Congo is not here. Yeah, it wasn't anywhere.
No.
On the front pages.
We've got other things happening in Afghanistan, Iraq. Why are they not making the headlines? And really, it defies belief that it's still there.
Yep. This is today's Independent on Sunday. Barack, unaware his aunt was in the US illegally. He claims to have been unaware that his half-sister, the half-sister of his late father, Zaytuni Onyango, has been living illegally in the US for 4 years. I mean, 2 days before the election, AO, do you think this could change things?
Well, I hope it doesn't. But it leaves a sour taste in the mouth. I think Obama would rather it didn't happen. But it's a fact of life. Obama clearly is an African, of African descent, and naturally he would have family members who he's got no control of, and I'm afraid this is just one sign to show that immigration is a major problem in the US, and it's a shame. It's a shame. I'm hoping that she don't get deported because they're looking at the possibility that she may be deported now because Obama has made it quite clear that the law would have to be followed to the letter.
Yes. Just looking at this headline briefly, Peter, Obamaniacs flock to see a glimpse of the chosen one. I mean, Obama, he's being presented as a savior to people, and there is a danger, isn't there, Peter, that people's expectations may be simply too high, and that, as one newspaper said, that the real challenge will really be after the election rather than during the election.
Well, from a certain cynical media perspective, Obama is an extremely successful product at the moment. If you spend $1 billion promoting any product, you're going to get this kind of reaction. This is the first $1 billion presidential election campaign, and in some ways it's no surprise that it's whipped up this fervour among Obama's supporters. It's slightly more surprising that there's not necessarily the same fervour for the other candidate, because a similar amount of dollars have been spent there.
Just looking again at another story that came out, this is in the Sunday Times today. Republicans try to use Oxford Don to smear Obama. I mean, AO, they're really trying everything they can, and here they've hired the services, or tried to hire the services of an Oxford academic to say that his autobiography wasn't written by him, but by the controversial weatherman, Mr. Ayers. So, I mean, it really is very much digging up the dirt.
It is, Jan, and for all intents and purposes, everything other than the kitchen sink has been thrown out at him. But rightfully so, because he is clearly in the lead. He's shown that he's got a vibrant attitude. That's been conveyed to the American public. They've taken to him. And even outside the country, everywhere else in the world, everyone seems to love Obama. But no one really knows who he is. And I think the level of expectation that's expected of him, should he win, I think maybe a mountain too high, because he's taking over an economy, the US economy, which is not performing very well, heavily in debt, banks not performing well, the issues that you and I aspire to daily, jobs, security, health, education. These are major issues in the American media at the moment, and he's going to find it extremely tough to change things around without the money.
Sure. I mean, remember Obama's background. This guy's basically a law academic. He's never run anything. What's he expected to do? Organise a faculty meeting when he gets into the White House? He's really an unknown. He's performed well in the Senate, yes, of course, but as an executive, what's he ever done in terms of track record? So he very much is an unknown quantity.
Well, you don't necessarily need that these days. I think with the internet, with the way he's been able to use the media, everyone seems to appreciate him, irrespective of his background, irrespective of his experience. And it then tells us a story. Is it that he's been able to sell himself that much more? He must have fantastic PR people around him, because you and I seem to love him. Others do, but we know nothing about him. He hasn't achieved anything in terms of being a governor, for example. He's never run the state. So he's only been in the Senate for 2 years.
Sure.
Is that enough to run the most important capital in the world?
Well, perhaps time will tell. But moving to Africa now, another story that developed during the week here. Congo, the new exodus. Thousands of refugees flee their homes and rebels attack once again. This article reporting on a disaster that has its violent roots in the Rwandan genocide. Tell us a little bit about how this story has been developing during the week.
Yes, well, it started off. We've got to go back as far back as '94, when in Rwanda, when we had the Tutsi and the Hutu groups that were fighting against one another. And of course, you know, the Tutsi community were killed in large numbers, and the Hutu population, who were partly blamed for that, actually went to the Congo, and a portion of them are actually still there. They've not been disarmed, so the Congo is being blamed for that. And out of this, we've now got a new group that's come about protecting Tutsis, and that's why we've got this new general who's come in and saying that he wants to protect Tutsis. He's actually taken the fight to the Congo. So it's very complex. The medias have actually handled it pretty well.
Right, okay, I was about to ask you, so you feel they're doing a good job in handling a complex situation?
Not the British media.
Right,
I would have liked to have seen them do slightly more, but...
Where should we look for more accurate or better coverage, do you think, Ayo?
Well, we have to look to other broadsheets elsewhere in the world, because the British media is not covering it as much as I would have liked. They're not putting it at the headlines. I mean, we've got just only The Guardian mentioning it on the bottom half of the first page. That just tells you the story. This is a very serious issue. There are children, there are women who are out there who do not have any homes to live at. They're living in camps. Some of them actually living in the open air. Food, shelter, healthcare. These are major problems at the moment.
I totally agree with that. But one, in the context of the Congo, though, we're looking at an absolutely enormous country that's been beset with horrendous problems for the past 45, 50 years almost, that have one of the most barbaric colonial regimes of all, and that's never recovered from that. In all honesty, if the Congo was going to be treated properly, given a proper place on the news agenda, it would probably hit the headlines every... It
occurs to me, Peter, that there is a tendency in the British press, particularly to sort of focus on, to sort of come down to one person in particular.
I would describe this as quite ignorant reporting, really, because the subtext here is that anyone with any kind of interest in this region knows that there's maverick warlords in a lot of the Congo, in quite a few other very troubled countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So to simply pull one of them out and then to try and frame the story around him seems quite bad journalism.
Do you agree?
No, I just tend to disagree with Peter there. Really, he is the problem at the moment. He is the one who's taking the fight to the Congo, and of course, you know, the Congo, their army has disintegrated. You've got the United Nations, who've got 17,000 forces out there, who've actually got to go out there and fight against him. So, rightfully so, the focus is on him, because he is the problem. Because without him, we wouldn't be in the position we are currently.
But shouldn't we have more context?
Well, we could, definitely. I think it's all juggling for position here, because the bottom line is we've got to negotiate with them, and he would be given a seat at the negotiating table.
To this story, this is Monday, there were only 2 complaints unrelated to the phone calls that they had made. Now, by Sunday, of course, we know this had turned into a major calamity for the BBC, the week that Britain's culture wars broke out. I mean, how did we get from 2 complaints to sort of a country in convulsions with itself?
Well, I believe it's trial by media. We're at an age now where we've got 24-hour television, the internet is readily available, pictures can be showed repeatedly, information can be distorted if needed to be so, and I'm afraid what we're seeing is a reflection of the BBC and the other powers that may be reacting to the pressure, untold pressure that's been brought by the media. So I think that's why we moved from 2 to as many as you've mentioned.